Today is May 26th, 2020. This is the Buddhism Group 101. Today we'll be talking about why we defend our ideas so strongly. The service today will be our usual online service, and we're going to have it broken up in three distinct parts. The first part we will be doing a meditation. After the meditation, we'll be doing a Dharma talk, and then we'll do a second meditation. The first and the second meditation will be different in that the first meditation is meant to just help calm our mind, calm our hearts, and prepare us to listen to and receive the Dharma. Hello, Vanessa. And then the second meditation is going to be focused more on insight. And so during the second meditation, you are to sit with ideas or comments from the Dharma talk that spoke to you, that grabbed your attention. And you're going to sit with them and ask why. Why did that particular idea catch your attention? And simply be curious about it. Allow yourself to gain some additional insights. Allow yourself to use the skills of mindfulness that you are developing as a tool to help you gain greater insight into yourself, and hopefully help you achieve greater enlightenment, more happiness, and a lot less suffering. So let's speak briefly here. Let's talk a little bit about what we do for the meditation. For those of you who have not meditated before or are joining us for the first time, the meditations we do here, we focus on the breath. This was an ancient form of meditation that was done even before the Buddha arrived in the scene 2,500 years ago. The idea is that the breath is something we carry with us everywhere, and so it's easier for us to practice the meditation anywhere we go, and regardless of what we're doing. There are three techniques that we usually teach for helping one focus on the breath. The first one, probably the one that's most commonly taught and has been taught for a long time, is to simply focus on the sensation of breathing. Focus on how it feels to breathe. Focus on the breath entering the body. Focus on the breath exiting the body. Pay attention to what is the first sensation that really grabs your attention. So for example, for me, when I breathe in, the sensation that most grabs my attention is the feeling of the air in the back of my throat. But I've spoken to other individuals who do the same meditation, but they will point to different parts of the body. A lot of people talk about feeling the breath on their upper lip. It's a little harder for me to do because I have a mustache, and so I don't feel it as strongly. Some people may feel it in the expansion of their lungs, their diaphragm, their shoulders. So just pay attention. Be mindful of where you feel the breath the most. And from there, expand to other sensations of the body as you continue to breathe. The second technique is to simply count your breaths. Count up to the number 10, and then start over again with the number 1. If you lose your count or lose your concentration, then you simply start over again with the number 1. And the final technique is to simply to use a gatha or a mantra, a phrase or a word. It can be a phrase or a word that is meaningful. It can also be a phrase or a word that is nonsensical and means nothing to you. And so you will find both techniques or both practices taught. And so it's very interesting. So you can, the gatha or the mantra that we often recommend here or one that we teach, is one by Thich Nhat Hanh. It is breathing in, I calm my mind. Breathing out, I smile. And you do a little half smile on your face, what I call a Mona Lisa smile. Part of meditation, part of what meditation does in general is the heart or the emotions, the mind or our thinking, and our body are interlinked. And so if you make significant changes to one, the other two are affected. And so by breathing deeply, slowly, by calming your mind, you have the net effect of calming all of you, of making all of you more centered and at peace. When you smile during that third technique where you're exhaling, you smile, by making that change to your body, it has a chance of affecting emotions, your mood, and your thinking as well. And this doesn't have to be just in meditation. How you carry yourself throughout the day, be mindful of how you carry yourself throughout the day, because any one of those, a strong sensation, physical sensation, a strong mood, or a pervasive thought or persistent thoughts, all can affect your body as a whole. In terms of sitting, make sure you're in a position during the meditation where you are comfortable, not so comfortable that you fall asleep, but comfortable enough that you can stay still in that position for 10 minutes. If something is uncomfortable, go ahead and shift and move around silently if you need to. If you have been practicing for a long time now, then maybe you could challenge yourself to actually not move, not scratch that itch, and see what happens when you simply observe it and allow it to be and allow it to leave on its own. Now, I recommend that if you do this more advanced meditation of sort of being able to just sit with those sensations and not do anything about them, please make sure you are not ignoring signals from your body that can be dangerous for you or unhealthy. Right? But an itch, if you ignore it, generally won't cause you any problems in 10 minutes of meditation. So these minor sensations you can try and practice with and ignore. During the second meditation, what I recommend is you start with breathing, focusing on the breath, using any of the techniques that work for you. But then after a minute or two has passed, bring back to mind the idea, our ideas, our words that struck a chord within, that caught your attention. Repeat them slowly and be curious about them. That curiosity is such an important tool. Think of it as a child. When the child is curious, they're really not thinking about whether they should be asking these questions or not. They're not really thinking about consequences. They're not being judgmental. They're just being curious. They want to learn. And so you want to approach your thoughts and your feelings with that same curiosity. What I like to call reckless curiosity. Allow yourself to explore, what is it that my words touched within you? What is it that my words brought up from our unconscious mind? Good. Let's go ahead and get in a comfortable position. Settle in. Take a few good deep breaths. And in a moment, I'll ring the bell and we will begin. Good. So today's Dharma talk is going to be on the topic of ego, but also the topic of why did we defend our ideas so strongly? Why do we feel personally attacked when someone strongly disagrees with our ideas? These are behaviors that we are seeing most prominently on social media, in politics, sometimes even in families. And there are some real reasons for that. And so I'm going to cover some of the science behind it, and I'm going to cover the Buddhist perspective on it. The science I can do quickly because there really is little that we know. When we look at MRIs of the brain, when one's political views are being challenged, we notice an activation of two primary regions of the brain. One region of the brain is often associated with the self, but it's an area of the region that we don't fully understand. It does so much, we don't quite understand it yet. So it's not the seat of self, but one's identity is somehow related to this one region. And the other region of the brain is located in the primitive brain and is associated with strong emotions, which corroborates what we see in the real world. That when you confront someone on their political views, they or you have very strong, typically negative emotions. And we don't see this with the challenging of other minor facts. So I could challenge you on the beliefs, on your beliefs of Einstein or of Thomas Edison, and because those are not political per se, the brain does not light up in the same way. But bring up topics that are very hot political topics, and those two regions of the brains activate very strongly. And what we're seeing also in the science is that when those two regions of the brain are activated, the likelihood of someone changing their opinion on those topics is almost nil. So it's not zero, but it's not really going to happen. The probability is very low. So there is truth to the idea that arguing with someone, whether it be over Thanksgiving dinner or over Facebook or Twitter or any social media, arguing with someone over political or very emotional topics, you're not going to change their mind, and they're not going to change yours. And part of this is that part of the brain that is in charge of identity somewhat. So again, it's a part of the region of the brain we don't understand yet. Triggers our self-protective instincts. And that's why we defend our ideas so strongly. What happens is that we identify with the idea so much that the brain, the primitive parts of the brain, believe that it is its duty to protect this psychological self in the same way that it finds it its duty to protect the body from harm. And to change an idea would be tantamount to dying or allowing that psychological self to die, which the brain does not want to do. So that's the working science theory, why we think we humans react so strongly, and why we defend our ideas so strongly, especially when we are emotionally activated. From the Buddhist perspective, this topic touches deeply on the topic of ego and attachment. You see, what happens is ego is that image of ourself that we have created, that story, that narrative of who I am. And when it comes to these beliefs, we are grasping and attached to those beliefs. And when we are challenged on those beliefs, our tendency is to grasp and attach to those even stronger. So paradoxically, when you are attempting to change someone else's mind, when they are actively or they're emotionally activated, you're only causing them to hold even stronger to their belief, the belief that you disagree with. And like almost all forms of attachment, the more we attach or others attach to those beliefs or ideas, the more we set ourselves up for suffering, the more we set ourselves up for anger, shame, self-doubt, and many other negative emotions. So when someone challenges us and we grasp tightly to the idea that we are right, we suffer. It's not a pleasant experience. We don't wake up in the morning wishing, oh, I can't wait till someone challenges my views and makes me feel that wonderful anger or that wonderful shame or that wonderful self-doubt. And it stems from our attachment to ideas. Our identification with the idea. Take some time to think about what it's like to defend your ideas when you feel attacked. The ego is involved. We feel personally attacked. And when we say we feel personally attacked, it's because we feel that our image of self is somehow being attacked by this contradiction. So ego and attachment are very much involved in this process that we are seeing constantly, and that we have seen in humanity, since the beginning of human history and before that. So what do we do? I mean, the first step is just be mindful of it. And so I'm hoping that just learning the science of it and some of the basic Buddhist explanation will help you be mindful of what it is that happens to you inside as you are feeling personally attacked. Well, what can you do? And so I have a list here. I wrote them out because there was a lot of things we could do that can help with this. Ultimately, the ultimate goal is to stop having that reactive impulse, to be able to keep ourselves from getting upset or angry. And we do that by switching our mindset. And that's the ultimate goal. And it's hard to do. And it's something we have to practice. And so I'm going to give you a bunch of little things that can be done that can help with this practice. One is to simply repeat to yourself like a mantra, I am not my idea. I am more than my idea. Now, be mindful that this statement itself is very ego-filled. I and my are words that are very strong in this sentence. But that's where we're at. And if that's where you're at, start there. Just repeat to yourself, I am not my idea. I am more than my idea. Remind yourself. The second thing we can do is to remind ourselves that for the reasons I've already commented on, our strong negative reaction is most likely not going to change the other person's mind and has a high probability of making them further entrenched in that idea that you disagree with. Be mindful that when you are challenged and you are emotionally activated, you will have a tendency to entrench and dig in and be less open. And now when you dig in, and when the other person digs in, we set ourselves up for more suffering. The anger, shame, self-doubt. All right, so we have, I am not my idea, and the arguing will rarely change the other person's mind. You can also repeat to yourself, ideas are cheap. Everyone has them, good and bad. Everyone has ideas. And ideas change. Your ideas changed. If you think about how some of your beliefs from 10, 20 years ago and how they compare to your beliefs now, chances are that many of them have changed. They've either deepened and you have greater wisdom and understanding of them, or you've abandoned them altogether and adopted new ideas that better fit your world reality. So ideas are cheap and they change all the time. Remind yourself that conflicting ideas can coexist. Conflicting ideas can coexist. So yours is not the only opinion, and that other person's opinion is not the only opinion or belief, that there are multiple beliefs. And there has been no time in human history when one idea alone has reigned. It may be that one idea may have a lot of power at certain time periods, but even those ideas were toppled. This one's a little harder, and it has to deal a lot with the compassion meditation, the compassion meditation, where you have to remind yourself that the other person, like you, is suffering and is trying to find happiness. So we have a tendency to vilify the other. And this then contradicts that. We, instead of vilifying or making the other the enemy, we see them as a suffering human being, an individual who, like us, is struggling to be happy. This one's really simple. Just wait. You don't have to react right away, at least not in most situations, and definitely not in social media or by email. Wait a few hours before you hit the send button. Allow the emotions to calm down and make sure that you are sending what you think is right. When responding, instead of attacking the idea, another individual or the other will be more open to discussions if you approach it as if you first discuss sort of your commonalities. Now, I understand that we both want to be happy. I understand that we both want our nation to be great. I understand that we want individuals to have freedom. And so find what are your commonalities, and finding that commonality and discussing that first can often make it easier for both parties to approach the issue as a separate problem, not as an attack on the other person. It's a little harder to do. It's a little more advanced, and it requires that the other person be in agreement with participating in that sort of discussion with you. Other more advanced skills, things that you can practice. This one's a little harder, but it can bear a lot of good fruit and one that you can take to meditation. This question that you should ask yourself can be done after the event has even occurred. So after you've had that big old fight with a family member or with someone on social media, sit down with this question and reflect on what happened. Or ideally, you will ask yourself this question before you even have that anger reaction or that emotional reaction. It's harder to do it right before that because our emotions are so impulsive, instinctual. It's a reflex, but it can be held in check. If you cannot hold your emotions in check right away, then reflect on this question after the event has passed. And the question is, what buttons were triggered in me and what buttons did I trigger in the other person? For the other person to have reacted strongly to your words, something in what you said triggered them. And something that they said back triggered you. What are those buttons? What are those triggers? It's important to know what those are because those are now a source of suffering for you and for the other person. And knowing what are those sources of suffering may provide you an avenue to be able to approach the other individual with wisdom and compassion. And if the time has passed and you cannot undo what was done, or if you're still angry at that person and you would never approach them again with compassion or forgiveness, at the very least, engaging in this exercise will give you more insight into future interactions. So what buttons did I touch upon the other person and what buttons were triggered in me? I once was trying to explain this idea to another person who had said something indirectly racist. So she did not intend to be racist in her comment. She was not aware of the history behind her comments. But she didn't understand why she needed to apologize. So I explained it this way. If you accidentally bumped against someone who had broken their arm and their arm was in a sling, and by accidentally bumping into them you caused them pain, what would have been your automatic reaction? Most of us would have been apologetic. It was not something we intended. It's not something we did on purpose, but we did cause suffering in the other person. And so we apologize in that situation. Why not also apologize in a situation like the one that this individual and I found ourselves in? It didn't work primarily because the individual had identified so personally with the idea and the need to be right that it did not go much further. I accepted that and simply moved on. There was no point in making myself suffer more. And so that's something also that an insight I hope you will get is that, is it worth the suffering you feel? If you are engaged in passionate discussion that is going to have some sort of effect, let's say you are lobbying in a house, congressional house, that's a good use of that passion and those emotions. But if making yourself angry over social media won't change the other person's mind and will only lead to more anger and frustration on your part, why bother going any further? It's not worth it. Other things to be mindful of as you bring these things into meditation. A lot of times personal attacks bring into question our values. I mean, that's kind of what makes them personal, is that the individual is either accidentally or purposely, trying to bring into question our values and our beliefs. And sometimes those feelings of self-doubt may persist way beyond the argument. And so one thing to do is to sit in meditation and simply ask yourself, what are my values? What proof do I have that I share those values, that I hold those values? All right? And so think of examples of times where you hold those values or express or put those values into action. And that can help with that self-doubt because you are seeing examples of you actually living your values. Sometimes it's also good to simply sit with and identify the emotion that was triggered. I am angry. Why? And use Master Thich Quang Tri's practice of asking the whys. So ask why and continue asking why. I am feeling shame. Why? And the idea, the explanations always have to be on the negative. For example, anger can be a sign that this is something important to you. Shame can often tell us that we are attached to a portrayed image. And this is such a huge part of ego. When you feel shame or embarrassment, it means that the image that you're trying to portray publicly or online has somehow been challenged or tarnished. And so we need to sit with that and recognize that our attempts to develop an image is dictated by what we think others want us to be and not by who we truly are. Anytime we try to portray a facade, an image, the mask in the public, that mask is dictated by external rules. And the more disconnected that mask is from our true identity, our true self, the more suffering we will experience. The more fake we will feel, the more shame we set ourselves up to experience. So a mantra, a good phrase that you could repeat over and over again during meditation is to say to yourself, let go of the need to be seen in any way by anyone. Let go of the need to be seen in any way by anyone. Notice that this phrase is not telling us to let go of false selves or let go of those, being seen as just a selfish person, but it's also asking us to let go of the need to be seen as generous, the need to be seen as Buddhist, the need to be seen as kind or compassionate. All these things are good, but when you need others to see you in that light, it sets you up for more disappointment and suffering. So let go of the need to be seen in any way by anyone. Let go of the need to be seen as intelligent or right by anyone. Let go of the need to have others agree with your opinion, to hold your opinion, to be you. It does not mean that we can't fight for justice. It does not mean that we can't be compassionate and help others who are suffering. It does not mean that we have to simply allow others to run over us. It does not mean that we have to simply stand by when social injustices occur. What it means is you will do those things more effectively if you let go of the need to be seen in any way by anyone. I still struggle with it. It's something that is a process. But I find that the more and more I let go of that need to be seen a certain way, the lighter I feel, the less burdened I feel, the freer I feel, and the happier I feel. I feel genuine. It's easier for me to be a man of integrity. And so that motivates me to let go more and more each day of the need to be seen in any way by anyone. Let's take a few minutes now to sit in silent meditation. The first minute or so, simply focus on the breath to allow you to be more mindful, more compassionate, less judgmental. And after that minute or so, bring up the words or ideas that most caught your attention and sit with it. Explore it. Be curious with reckless abandon. Get to know yourself. thank you very much for joining me today. I hope that I gave you some things to think about. I hope that my words today will help you suffer less, help others suffer less. And may any merit that we have accrued in this time together go out to the world that is suffering. May it heal, may it bring strength, and may it bring wisdom. And remember, there's no need to be seen in any way by anyone. Goodbye.